Hour. Thank you so very much for joining us. This is going to be one of those programs that you probably will remember. That's right. Dr. Paul Byrne, MD, joins us today. He is a board-certified neonatologist. Now, that's the one that takes care of the sickest babies that are just born, the really underweight babies, the chronically ill babies. He is a board-certified neonatologist and pediatrician. He is the founder of the Neonatal Intensive Care Unit at SSM Cardinal Glennon Children's Medical Center in St. Louis. He is a clinical professor of pediatrics at the University of Toledo College of Medicine. He is a member of the American Academy of Pediatrics and Fellowship of Catholic Scholars, past president of the Catholic Medical Association, formerly clinical professor of pediatrics at St. Louis University and Creighton University in Omaha, professor of pediatrics, chairman of the pediatric department at Oral Roberts University School of Medicine, and chairman of ethics committee at the City of Faith Medical and Research Center in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He has presented testimony on life issues to 9 state legislatures beginning in 1967. He opposed Dr. Kevorkian on the television program Crossfire. He's been interviewed on Good Morning America, public television in Japan, participated in BBC documentary, Are the Donors Really Dead? That tells you where we're going with this. He has authored articles against euthanasia, abortion, and brain death. Website is lifeguardianfoundation.org. Lifeguardianfoundation.org. It's my pleasure to welcome you. Thank you, Dr. Paul Byrne, for joining us on the Power Hour today.
Organ transplantations have occurred because they tried to do heart transplants after someone had died, but they weren't successful. And so then the first heart transplant was done in South Africa, and that got a lot of notoriety. But the second heart transplant was done in Brooklyn, New York, and not very many people heard about that. But in Brooklyn, New York, 3 days after they did the first heart transplant in South Africa, they did the second one in Brooklyn, New York. They cut the beating heart out of a 3-day-old baby and transplanted it into an 18-day-old baby. And at the end of their procedures, both babies were dead. It was immoral. It was illegal. And that was in 1967. So they had to find a way to make it morally acceptable and legally, and make it legal. And so they set up a committee at Harvard, and the Harvard committee invented brain death. It was not based on any kind of science. Yes, it just invented it, and they did not do studies on dogs or cats or rats. They didn't even gather any data from human persons. They just invented brain death. It was done without any basic science studies. It was done without any scientific studies on human persons. They just made up brain death, and they made it up for 2 reasons. One was to get organs, but the other reason was when somebody gets resuscitated and the result is not as good as what they would desire, they had to have a way to stop treating those patients. And so they invented brain death for that. So brain death is about 2 things. One is getting organs for transplantation, and the other is to stop treatment of patients. And these things all fit in together in the society in which we live. Some people have called.
Well, let me stop you, sir, Dr. Byrne. Dr. Byrne, let me stop you just a second, because I want you to explain to the people that may not understand the legal definition of brain death, or what is brain death. It is a category, a certain category that must be declared prior to organ donation. Explain that to the listeners, please.
Well, first of all, as you said, it must be declared. It's not a diagnosis. In medicine, we have a book of diagnoses, and brain death is not listed there as a diagnosis. It's not a diagnosis.
Wow.
It's a declaration or a determination. by a doctor. And brain death has so many different meanings because the law, for instance, uses cessation of brain function or cessation of brain function. But a stoppage of the function does not mean that the organ is destroyed or that the person is dead. And what brain death is brainwashing. And it's not new to the idea of brainwashing. You say something, and that will have a word in it that's known to somebody, and then they think like that. For instance, brain death, you'll hear that. Everyone knows what death is. They not that they experience themselves, but they know it from when they were a child and playing with the caterpillar, and the caterpillar doesn't do anything anymore, or they know it from their pet, dog, cat, fish. They know that there's a difference between life and death, or from a relative who dies. People know the difference. So when they hear brain death, they think death. Well, that's completely wrong. It's brainwashing is what is occurring there. Of course, when someone is dead, their brain is destroyed, and their heart is destroyed, and their liver is destroyed, and it won't ever function again. It irreversibly won't function. On the other hand, when you observe only the absence of the function of the brain or the absence of the function of anything, that absence of functioning is what's observed. That doesn't even mean that the function is gone, much less that the organ is destroyed. For instance, my automobile is not functioning, but the function isn't gone. It just takes a key and a driver. And so when the law, which is the Uniform Determination of Death Act, makes it sound like it's a very strict law because it says irreversible cessation of all functions of the entire brain, including the brainstem. The language is very strong, but it's a language of an absence of the functioning, which doesn't mean that the brain is destroyed or that the person is dead. And then the law has been made to be very weak because the determination is made in accord with accepted medical standards. And the accepted medical standards can be almost whatever one physician says or a group of physicians says. And especially if you give them a title like a neurological association or something.
Right.
Like that.
Okay, we got to go to this break. Dr. Paul Byrne will be back after this 4-minute break. This is the Power Hour. Joyce Riley. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.